This is our neuron video for 5th period AP Biology with Anji, Wesley, Jasmine, and Gautham. Now, when we talk about the neuron, we also need to talk about the synapse. The synapse has neurotransmitters that cross over it and reach the dendrites over here. Each neurotransmitter has the ability to stimulate a dendrite, causing it to create an action potential. These action potentials go through the soma, or basically go around the soma to reach to restart at the axon hillock. At the soma over here, or the cell body, we have things like the neuron, the mitochondria, and just basically what any normal cell needs to survive and keep living. At the axon hillock, the action potential restarts and goes down the axon, which Jasmine will describe in more detail.
The nerve impulse will travel through the axon, which is covered in myelin sheaths. The myelin sheaths helps transfer the impulse at a faster pace. An individual myelin sheath is called the Schwann cells that are separated by the nodes of Ranvier.
The nodes of Ranvier cause a phenomenon known as the saltatory conduction, where the action potential basically stops at each Schwann cell and restarts at each node of Ranvier, jumping until it reaches the synaptic terminal. At each synaptic terminal, it releases neurotransmitters that go on to stimulate more neurons or a muscle cell. Now we will observe this process in closer detail by looking at a chart of the action impulse.
The graph starts at the resting potential of -60 to -80 millivolts. During this stage, gated sodium and potassium channels are closed. The second stage is depolarization. In this stage, a stimulus opens a sodium ion channel, increasing membrane potential inside the neuron cell. As more positive sodium ions flow in, it causes more gated sodium channels to open, further increasing membrane potential. Once the threshold is crossed in the third stage, the positive feedback cycle rapidly brings the membrane potential close to the equilibrium potential of sodium.
So then the action potential occurs, which is when the membrane potential is at approximately 40 millivolts. This signals the beginning of the falling action, also the fourth stage. In the fourth stage, the membrane potential moves in the opposite direction from the sodium equilibrium. Voltage-gated sodium channels inactivate, and this halts the sodium inflow. This also signals the beginning of the refractory period, which is when the neuron keeps the impulse moving in the proper direction and also prevents a second impulse from occurring at the same time. Also in the fourth stage, the voltage-gated potassium channels begin to open, which causes the potassium to rapidly flow out of the cell. In the final phase of the action potential, also called the undershoot, the membrane's permeability to potassium is higher than it is at rest. The gated potassium channels eventually close during this stage, which returns the membrane potential to the resting potential, which is what is happening in stage 6. Once in resting potential, the neuron is ready to receive another impulse and create another action potential.